pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, minutes.
Make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Second.
Any discussion?
Nope, not good.
Aye.
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 Correspondence? No. It's with the packets. Public comment? Okay.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Clerk, and members of the community. My name is Lorene Faustet, and I live in Alberton. And this evening I have attended after speaking with Emily to explain what it is that I came for. So in May, we lost our recycle bin that was at the feed store in Alberton. And the town council determined that they would send out letters to the community in Alberton in order to get money to pay for the bin, because Republic had attended the council meeting and explained that they needed money in order to continue to do the bin. And the bin had been a senior project for 3 years. It had been being picked up, so the community was used to this, and it was also something that other people from outside of that community used. So in June, this letter went out from the town clerk. I didn't attend that council meeting, but in July I attended to find out what happened with the letter and if there was response, because they were soliciting funds from the school and the local businesses in Alberton for these funds. And the town had agreed that they would pay a certain amount in order to then support the bin for the direct community. In July, it was reported at the council meeting, no response had been received from any of these businesses. So it became evident it was something someone else needed to take on, and that's when I raised my hand and said, may I follow this up? So I went around, talked to the businesses, and made a loose agreement with them that they would be willing to pitch in, but then we didn't have a formal organization or something who is going to take responsibility for the finances, because the town had determined they didn't want to deal with it at that July meeting, I guess it was. So I formed a board of members out of the community in Alberton, and I found out through Jim Debris about the Middle County Economic Development Corporation, which I attended one of their meetings. I think that was in August. Formed a formal relationship with them, so that then we are operating under them as they have an umbrella set up for that, so we could be a 501c3. Contracted with Republic to return the bin, and it returned actually, I think it was the end of October, and that first bin lasted us through the end of November, and then now we've just had our second bin picked up. So basically, just told you all of that detail in order to understand. The process took a while. It was determined that the community support was needed, not only in contributing to it financially, but in learning what was appropriate to go in it, because there was received microwave sinks and things that made it so it didn't work. So a key element is the location. So it being at the feed store where it is behind a lock is a big part of that key. So Emily and I talked a little bit about that. Well, to back up for just a minute, for over a year I've been talking with Monty Turner at the hospital and trying to figure out, okay, once we get our little project in Alberton under control and going, which now we've just achieved that, how can we branch out now and do this again, starting in Superior? So that's why I'm here, to be able to start that. And I know that there are people locally who have talked about this and have attempted it. I had a recycling project I started in Washington, where I just moved from, and donated that to my community. So I do have a lot of experience in this area, and as you all heard, I am a Faustet, and so waste management is in my blood.
Not a girl.
Gotta
on.
admit it. I am who I am.
No, it's okay.
So in speaking with Emily, then would like to offer to you to now, how do we replicate what we did there? If we approach the MCECD about creating another branch, if you have other ideas on how you would like to pursue this, it seems like it's the simplest of answers in order to meet the community need, because people in the community want to do this. Of course, there is the grocery store who has a significant amount of cardboard that needs to be recycled. That's part of the health issues. Besides other areas in the community, so like the hospital, so we have a good pool here that we could pull from in terms of businesses. The council's fund that they donate to this, because of us being 501c3 is a donation, takes care of any resident in the town. And so when you enter the feed store lot, in order to use this bin, you have to go into the feed store and get the key to unlock the bin. And then when you come back to return the key, they point out the can on the counter so that you can make a contribution. Oh, you live in town, that's right, yeah. Okay, well, you're covered. So, but other people, there needs to be funds raised that specifically, so someone coming from St. Regis that brings things to the bin, which I know there are people who do, and she might put $3, $5, whatever. It all comes together. So we can pay for that bin, but a bin for Superior will cost more than $300. Probably $450. That's the last that was quoted to me in order to do this. But we have other ideas.
Yeah.
So, but this is a start. So I just want to be in my 3 minutes and I'll see if there's any questions and see how you'd like to proceed.
So how you're controlling garbage from going into the bins, because obviously, once garbage goes into the recycle bin, then Republic's
It's
no
garbage.
longer,
Right.
is by having the business lock it and keep it locked?
Right.
Okay.
And technically, it cannot be locked because of the town council paying for the use of that bin. However, because of the location and the logistics and how it needs to be managed, this is how we're doing it. The feed store has a gate, so it's located in a yard with a gate. That's a key part of it. You have to come into the store to ask for the key, and that's sort of a control thing. And for this waste, plus, if they don't recognize you and see that you're someone who hasn't been before, they walk out there with you, show you how to unlock the bar dealie, and then see, oh, by the way, no, that is not acceptable. And then because it's behind the gate and it's locked up at night, we don't get the sink or the microwave in there anymore. And that is something else I can talk about, and I'll just say really briefly, because this little group that I put together for the board got all excited about doing recycling. We are doing an electronics collection, and there are other things that we're working on, so just to throw that in there. But that's how we're controlling it, and that's a key component. The bin must be located where that it can have that level of control, or it absolutely won't work. And that will cause Republic to say, we're not picking it up anyway.
Right.
So
Yeah,
that's
we had
in a
talked,
nutshell.
together about maybe if we opened it up to county-wide, if Republic saw the potential for a large collection of cardboard, especially we were talking about, that they could bring to Lozo, both Albertons, all of Mineral Communities recyclables to Lozo, and do the separating there, and then
Potentially.
ship it to Washington.
Right.
It might be advantageous to Republic to do that.
Well, this is another detail, but
Yeah,
like the
so-
reason that it's $300, which this is absolutely ridiculous, but they come, so we pay a man, drive from Missoula in the truck, drop off an empty bin, pick up the full bin, drive back to Missoula, where they then dump the whole thing out on the tipping room floor, bale it together, and this is how they find that if there's something that's not supposed to be in there is in there. Put those mixed bales on a truck, ship it to Washington, where they're then busted apart again. We now have man-hours, but it goes to the MRF, which is the Materials Recycling Facility. was part of their financial model when they built that thing, that they're like, oh, now as we're buying this community waste management project, we're going to now ship this over to our MRF to keep it rolling, because that's how it pays for itself, and it's all mechanized, very few people are employed. So part of this is, working better with Republic and
Maybe making it advantageous to Republic to do that.
That's something that could happen, and not suggesting that the recycling collection happen at the transfer station, because part of what they've determined is that, I guess that they have 3 hours for 2 days a week or whatever. I can't remember what their hours are right now, but that transfer station is not operated the hours that it was previously.
Right.
And so the location of the Green Clearing Superior would be elsewhere. And I have a couple of suggestions on what I think would be appropriate. It was suggested it be located near the food bank, and I have to say, in all honesty, from the day it arrived there until for absolute ever, you will get trash there if you put it in there, because that's why this control is a must. It's mandatory that it be in such a controlled area. When we live in an economically challenged community, you can't get away without not having trash collected unless you bring it to this level. So I'd be happy to pursue this further with any and all of you. And
Maybe we could put it on the agenda maybe for next month to
Maybe,
discuss it
yeah.
more and maybe have more,
perhaps have a proposal or something further.
have
Yeah.
something else. Yeah, we could put it on the agenda to
It
talk.
took
We could talk. I know it takes
6
time.
months, 7 months from the time that council was talking about it until we actually had something in place. But we could maybe go faster. So.
Yeah. Well, you've sort of broken the ground for us.
Yeah.
So, yay, good for you.
Thank you. So
Thank
I don't know
you.
if you have any questions, or that you're welcome to get a hold of me. I'll leave my information.
Do you have a cards?
Yeah.
Or okay, we'll grab one of those. Thank you very much.
Any other public comment? Pick it all up. Animal. No tickets written, one warning issued for dog at large.
Yep, it was a white dog with a black spot. Rodney found out what it was from.
A black spot.
Issued a warning to the lady. And whether that works or not, it usually doesn't. But we know where she lives.
Parks.
No activity.
Very little. Oh, wait, do we drive by, make sure nothing's tore up. Check for garbage.
Crime and court. One omnibus hearing and 2 status. Huh? One omnibus hearing, 2 status. And our sheriff is here.
Yeah, congratulations. You need some cookies. You can take them all, bless your heart.
I can guard those cookies.
Well.
Okay, pool, water being added weekly to maintain level. Water will infiltrate from outside in, several more cracks appearing.
That's just the general from the, and what everybody knows, when we shut it down, we shut the water off and it drained itself within 2 weeks at the most. And so now we have to fill it up every week. It drops a foot every week. And you gotta keep the water in it to keep it from freezing. And we've never had to do that before. We've had to bring it up maybe once or sometimes twice in a whole winter just to get it up there, but now it's every single week that's dropping. So it's something, part of the ongoing discussion.
Sewer.
All checks and maintenance being done, all testing has been completed, and one sewer call at the hospital look into.
Yeah, normal maintenance going on, and then they had some issues up there. So Rodney and I went and flushed the onions, there was nothing in it. So we did it anyway. Checked. And then we it's within their complex. It's pretty massive. It goes from one end of the thing all the way to west. She was going to get her own. She covered all
Water, all checks and it's been done, all testing has been completed. A water call at Choices responded to.
They've had them. They've been there since '02. 2 faucets that are out there in that lot that's down there, and decided they've been broke so many times, and you don't really know how to shut it off. There's 3 mains that run down 4th. There's a 4-inch, a 12-inch, and a 1-inch. That used to be a laundromat, and so it's got a 2-inch line coming out of it, and then it splices off. We tried to locate with our thing, and we had lines going this way, and we had lines going this way. So we said, well, we just start shutting off. What you end up doing is you start shutting off valves until it quits, and it could have been 4 to 8 blocks or more that we've had to figure out till we got it. We've done that in the past. I've shut off 17 valves. But they dug it up and then left. And so I stopped at Choice. Are you going to leave that like that? I said, that's going to freeze, and we're not sure how to shut that off. And so they called the contractor. He said, oh, you're worried about it freeze? Yes, it's wintertime. So they came back and wrapped it all up, and then we got a hold of the hospital and found out that they have a freezing machine. And so we've used it in the contractors in the past have used it. When we did the meters, when we bought this, they used it to freeze lines. So then you don't have to shut off the whole area, and you can just freeze these little things. So they had it, and so we had to get our own gas, but it was worth it. So we borrowed their thing, and they dug it up again. We froze the lines, they cut it down and capped it, and then they buried it. So hopefully that problem will be gone. It's slick. They're $500, and I thought, I don't know if the town should have one or not, because how many times are you going to use it? But if you can't figure out how to shut off the line without killing the whole town apart, then it comes in handy. We can still borrow it.
Freeze it with nitrogen?
Yes, carbon dioxide.
Okay.
Yeah, you can use nitrogen. Any free, you can use propane. But we got the CO2.
Okay, streets.
Sinkhole in Mullen Road West being investigated.
Well, it's a state road, and we've looked at it, and there's no water main over there, so we're not sure where it's coming from. And I've called Kevin back 3 times, and we've got no response back from them. Their initial thing is they put a pipe down there, and it was wet. I said, well, no duh. That's the drainage for all the rain, and if you watch the rainstorm coming there, it went right to that hole and just went right down there. So it's their road. Until they determine that they can say it's ours, I'm not going to mess with it. They're going to have to dig it. And if it goes in, it's going to be
Where's this
Where's
sinkhole at?
heading out Mullen Road West, just past Senex used to be.
Oh, okay.
There's one little patch there that they patched initially, and then a little hole dropped in there. And it's the low spot, so anytime it rains or snow melts, it just pours right down in there. But we don't have a water main over there. And all the old mains, when we put the new one in, were discontinued. So I don't think it's a water main. There could be an old service line somewhere in there that we don't know about. I don't think so. So until they are willing to dig it up, that's why I told them, I'm not going to. It's harder for us to get money out of them if we did the work and found out it was there.
Okay, fire. 2 emergency calls, 2 training sessions, duty chief vehicle, recruiting and retention, public relations. Sorry.
We had 2 emergency calls, came in through dispatch directly to me when they're vague, like smell or something. They don't call it not vague out from the department to find out. We reported there was a gas smell at the drains and nugget. It turned out to be a fuel spill in the parking lot that was being pulled into the building due to the damage and air conditioning system's cool air return. So we had to shut down that while it dissipated and ventilate for it and using the natural doors and things like that. And then within a few hours later, we had a similar call, this time fuel on the ground from a van, who turns out was at the nugget a couple hours earlier. And that was where the gas leak was coming from. The neighbors were trying to patch it, trying to mitigate the fuel, and unfortunately it was just that little part of the tank, and the we were able to dike it temporarily, and we asked for some sink, we just had a nice fill response to put down the litter and clean it up and protect the environment a little bit. There was no towing out for any of that, which is kind of by me, but we did it for our goal, and that was all the activity we had for the month. That puts us at 37 calls on the game. First training session on November 7th, we worked in on our first 10 officer priorities. I usually do it in there, but it's good to know what to do and know what we're going to do. And then we spent the second period training on the portable equipment, the rescue airbags, jaws of life, the stuff that we use at the make sure all the lights and everything work, and the portable lighting. And then for the past 2 years, I've been providing my own vehicle, my own gas. And we had an opportunity to ask for a vehicle, and the Montana DNRC did locate one for us. That's the big white truck with a plow in front. The vehicle was free, needs some work done to it. The plow was for free as well. We'll figure out who wants to have it. So we paid $1,300 to get transported from an Air Force base in Utah. And essentially, it'll give us a vehicle that whoever's in charge of the duty chief 24/7 can use that as a response vehicle. We'll probably get a pull-out trailer now, however. Brenda had told us that our budget was around $700 for vehicle stuff, and we only used $1,300 so far, and we'll try to get to the rest we can. It should make a big difference. It just turns out that it was a one-time diesel with a block heater and a whole bit. We'll have the power, and it should not freeze. We're at 16 members. We had one member for work had to move to Missoula, so it's been up in number most of the year between 16 and 18. And then as far as public relations go, as of the end of the month, we visited 112 homes to install 304 smoke alarms. We cleaned the batteries. Still have some left in stock, and then did a few today. Got more planned throughout the month to the bed shakers, which are the hearing impaired alarms that shake the bed when your smoke alarm goes off. We have a total of 15, and we've installed 10 of those in some of our residents' homes that are hearing impaired. And of the 25 carbon oxide alarms we got on the grant, we've installed 12 of those, and we still have some in stock that we can utilize. You want that? Yes.
It's sorry to hear.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
you're doing a good job.
Thank you. One of those situations to where when you're myself and my spouse and 2 grandkids to support part-time and quite significant in the long term. I had talked with Brenda and the mayor a few months ago about this design and I would be exploring doing opportunities. I have one offer, an officer right now that's required to background and whatever, and usually jump through. This last week I attended about 3 other interviews with engineer in California. So I've been offered a job by the Dow. They want me to be able to be their training chief of both career and volunteer personnel, and hard to turn down the money, $7,000 and full medical and dental and vision for the family. So I'm on schedule to start that January 2nd, and in fact, the background investigator will be here by Wednesday if you really want to schedule the theater.
What time is that?
But I've got others I give just in case. Contingent officer, great, until I'm actually got my feet on the ground and on the payroll. I'll continue to explore my options. So I've been to Weed, California, Bishop, California, and Retards, just to keep the variety of options out there. But the Dow might be the best option. Thanks for the opportunity. I've learned a lot. Really enjoyed what I did here. I still have a house here for a while. So thank you.
Council concerns.
Well, we're going to put on the agenda, we start looking for a new chief.
Yeah.
Start the process.
Okay.
Because you can, according to policy, you will post 5 days in-house in case there's anybody in-house that wants to apply first. And then you go out.
We still have to start that process.
Yeah, we can start that process.
So, can we table this unless you can do it? See Tim?
I don't see him here.
Table that till later.
Beautify the Town.
Anything updated?
Yeah, we did, as you see, we have some of the banners up. There was one that we didn't get the bracket for, but I do have the bracket now. So we have one more to put up. And that one on 4th Street there, right by Durango's, we're going to have them turn that. You notice how close the semis come when they come off the freeway. They could hit that one
Like
as
right
it's
on.
sticking out. Yeah, so we're going to have them turn it so it's going down 4th Street.
That makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. So we're going to, Friday, I think, and Rob and Tony at Superior Coal and Lumber have been really wonderful about helping us get those
Good.
up.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, the wreath on the bridge, thanks to my husband and our ladder, we put those up. Hanging out over the bridge again.
Not for that.
They have no liability.
Not afraid of heights.
I was the one on the ladder. He was holding the ladder.
Covered, right?
So I guess he could have dumped me out anytime.
You go up there.
Oh, my.
It's easy for me
Out here.
to her. He's gonna try to, that's true.
Okay, swimming pool,
Okay.
close or open?
Now it's their time.
Well, I think
I think it's council first and then.
Oh, and then we get to hear the public.
Roger
Okay.
needs to
We-
talk about what is going on underneath the pool.
We what about it, Roger?
Sorry, Roger.
Under the pool.
You get to be.
Start? Okay, yeah,
you
no
get to start.
problem.
Yep.
So the situation with the pool is that for the first time in 25 years, I ran out of chemical. And that's basically because we have to run water 24/7 just to keep it full. So we've got a 3/4 inch line open full bore and it runs nonstop. So you're constantly treating the water. You use your chemicals if you didn't have to, you'd add makeup once a week, once every 2 weeks, just be from evaporation and splash out. But it's got worse as the years went. And this is the first year that we've had to run it nonstop. You can visibly see it's settling in one corner. That would be the southeast corner. The steps in there, it's settling a little bit. You can see cracks kind of going around. And as we clean it every spring, we've noticed cracks going north-south that were never there before. They're fine, and they're not leaking there. That's just showing you that maybe the stress that it's under from whatever's happening underneath that pool. So we put over between 2 and 3 million gallons added between the regular 150,000 we put in. We added that through the summer. Now we're adding it every week. And it runs from 9 o'clock until 1 o'clock to fill it back up that foot. And you have to have that in there because if you don't leave that water in, the cold and the frosty will mess with the walls. We think the leak is in the piping that's down the middle. In the middle you have a pipe that's 5 inches, and that's your main drain. It drains in there, goes into the filter pool. Then you got a pump that sucks that water out and heats it through the heaters and then sends it back out. And we cambered that line, the big line, because we could get a camera on it several years ago, and it looked good. But the little one is just a little tiny thing, and you couldn't get a camera into it. There's no access to it. Down the bottom, you have a hole, so you can get down there and go up on there. Several years ago, Tony and I, Doug, we noticed that right at the concession area, where you go in there, the roof was sagging. And so we jackhammered, cut that out, jackhammered, and found the pipe that came in, and it turns and goes in there, and right at the elbow, it had split, pushed away. And so we got it back in there, glued it, and put fiberglass special stuff that's supposed to hold it on there, hoping that that would cure the leak. And so we got that. That's the only leak that we could get to. The other ones where we think it is under the base of the pool, which is in concrete and rebar. That's to me what's holding it. If you've seen pictures of that old pool, they built it well because they didn't put rebar every foot. They put rebar about every 2 inches. It's everywhere. That's when you see the picture. It's just rebar everywhere, and then they put the cement and the gunite and everything on So I think that's what's keeping it from going anywhere, but it is starting to move. So if you're looking at the cost, the loss of water, plus the cost of pumping that, we've got to pump that all the way up to that well and drain it all back, and you're going to do that every year, or we're going to do it all month, 12 months of the year just to keep it up. It's getting to a point where you have to sentimentally take that out, because I've been here since '61, probably more than any longer than anybody here. And it's a nice amenity. It's something that the town chooses to do. And at some point, you decide, do we still want to continue to throw that money at it? It's an old pool. People say, well, why don't you fix it? Well, we're under some constraints on doing that because it's a grandfathered pool as it is. It meets none of today's standards. The diving boards don't, because of the slope. It's too steep and it's too close. There used to be a high dive in there, and they made us take that out a long time ago. And then it had the little low dive there. Well, it was over to the side. And at the time, we put a whole new deck around it. So at that time, we were able to move it to the middle, and that alleviated one of the dangers of them hitting the side of the pool. So on that one, the state made us take that out. So there's a lot of the guidelines that if you take it out of grandfather, you've got to bring everything up to today's code. That puts you in a position, how much money are you going to throw at a 60-year-old pool? And it's just a decision, everybody'd like to see it going. I mean, you talk about kids using it, yes they do, but I've been doing it for 25 years, and I watch it every day. They hit it hard in the beginning, and halfway through they're down, and sometimes in the last 2 or 3 weeks you got 5, 10 people in it. And so that's just the decision that you got to decide. When do you pull the plug on something like that? In all towns, it's an amenity that they're willing to pay for, and they all have to add money to it. None of it pays for itself. We've talked to Sydney, we've talked to Missoula, we've talked to Havre, we've talked to everybody that has a pool. Missoula and Havre both put $90,000 a year into that pool.
Out of their general fund.
Out of their general fund. They
Besides
keep
the
it going.
fees to help pay for
So
the operations.
they're not money makers. It's just something as a city, and then you have a base that you hope that can pay that. And our base is, the only people that pay for this pool is the city limit people. Not any, the out of town people use it, but they don't pay for the maintenance and everything, they just pay the fee. You can't charge enough money to pay for that pool.
I figured it out this year. You'd have to raise the rates, at the current rates, you'd have to raise 6 times what they are currently to break even on last year's operations cost, which wouldn't help anybody. It would eliminate a lot of people being able to even use the pool that way.
Okay, let's get back to the break. You think that the break is in the pipe, from the drain pipe that goes back to the filter system, the return line from the pole?
We think it's in the heating line. The return line is the big 5-inch, and that's the big suction, and it just gravity feeds into the filter pool. Then you have the pump that grabs it, puts it down through the heaters, and then sends it out through the heating ducts. And there's like 8 of them down there that spray out the heated water.
What size line is that?
I'm not sure. We've never seen. You can't see it. I think it's like a 2-inch line, because there's little caps that cause it to spray out, and you can look down in there and see a little ways, but you can't tell how big the line is.
So is there a possibility that we could feed a line through that center of that and still feed the pole? Where, basically you're using the old line as a liner, and you're going through the center of it with a new line. Is there a possibility that could be done?
Well, you'd have to go from the pump itself, which is a 4-inch line that comes out of the pump and goes into that line. It starts at 4-inch. What it does underneath that pool, I have no idea. And so you could, but now you're doing a turn to try to get down in there.
So there's no architectural drawings around on that?
Nope, not on the workings. These were just pictures that we saw of this thing itself. And there's a line down at the end, the last sprinkler head, I call it sprinkler head, but it's a heater head, that possibly you could try to string something up there and then pull it down, whether that's possible or not and how much it would cost. I mean, I don't know.
So are you 100% sure that's the leak, or?
No.
See, there's the next problem. What if we do all that, that wasn't the leak? Or not the only leak, or not the major leak?
But you can't see it running out the sides, a sidewall, or,
No.
and the cracks on the sidewall aren't opening any further?
No, they're not. And we've been looking at this for a while, and so we had Steve Moran. Some locals would know who he is. He went to school here, and so he was the homeboy that actually helped us. I called him, and that's what he did, was Pool World out of Spokane. So he came and did an assessment when we were getting new heaters, and he put dye into those cracks, and he says, this is what we do and everything, and none of those cracks pulled that dye in. And then he said, well, maybe it's the gutters. Well, it's not the gutters, because once it gets below them, it doesn't stop. It just keeps going all the way. So the only avenues in that to drain is those bottom two pipes. And
Those
the
are all
one
underneath.
big pipe only has
Right
the
down
one
the
opening
center.
at the bottom, that's the drain pipe.
Right down the center.
And then the other line has 8 receptacles where the heat comes up. So to me, those are the only 2 places that it could be. But that's speculating.
I wonder, Roger, okay, if you're feeding water through that on the heat line, how is it draining back out? Or is it the water you're feeding through that's draining? How's it draining out of the pole through that? 'Cause that's a feed line, not a return.
It could be just because there's a hole in it, and so now you've got, because that's under pressure. The main line is sucked in by gravity. If you fill up the pool and you open up the valve, as the pool rises, the filter pool comes. Now you put the pump in, and the pressure is on the heat side. So it's spraying it out there, because then it's spraying out every one of those little vents, it's spraying it out. I'm thinking that that's probably where it is. So now under pressure, there's some hole or break or something in there that when you turn that pump on, it's spraying out and undermining it faster than just sitting there. But when we turn that pump off, that thing still drains, because water can get into all 8 of those vents, and then it can get into that main drain. Just by gravity, you can sit in there and push it out.
Brenda had mentioned about the decking being hollow sounding.
Well, there's somewhat, I guess, if you
Where at?
the one corner on that where the steps are, which is the south one, that's the one that's kind of set. And you can kind of pop on it and it sounds a little hollow. I don't know if there's a void there or not.
I've been a big proponent of keeping that pool open for a long time. But I think we've come to the end of the road. And you've got to consider our liability. There's a tremendous amount of water going somewhere. It doesn't just disappear. It's going somewhere, and when water moves, it moves stuff along with it. Somewhere I'd be amazed if there wasn't a huge sinkhole forming somewhere. Now, where's it going to be at? Is it going to be under the road, and some car drives through and busts out the pavement? And who gets killed and who pays? We do. The liability now is becoming something that, we've got to look at protecting the town here. I would love to keep that pool open. I would love to see another pool built. But I've finally come around to believing now we've got to start looking at protecting the people who live here, protecting the liability, and I don't see a way that we can keep that whole pool open any longer. It's not just the money we're pouring into it. You can't have a brand new pool and not keep pouring money into it. Pools don't make money. It's just the liability. Is somebody going to get killed driving their car into a sinkhole at night, or whatever else might happen? Property damaged if that sinkhole turns up under somebody's house.
That's
You
the
know,
worry.
I hate
That's
it.
the
That pool was one of the first things I saw when I moved here. I thought, well, that's pretty cool. This little town's got a pool. I had a nice park right there. I sat there and ate lunch there the first day I showed up here. And by the time I left here that day, I'd bought a house. And, but the time has come. It's just like we've cut some old trees out of the park. We've cut some old trees out of a couple of the other parks, the ball field. Pool's got old, it's like those old trees dropping branches and dying. Pool's outlived its usefulness. And it's become a liability that we've got to do something with. I see no choice now but to close that pool down and start making plans for what we're gonna do.
I would hate to see it closed until all avenues are, looked into about possibility of fixing,
I think
finding a way, or where is it going? Maybe we need to look at something like that. It's going into the aquifer, we know that,
How do we know that?
Yeah, we
Well,
don't. that's
water
the problem.
goes down.
We don't know where
Water-
it's going.
You don't know whether it's creating a sinkhole or not. You're right. But, at 10 gallons a minute, isn't that approximately what,
It's way more than that.
It's more than that, it's about
Yeah.
23
you know,
gallons.
'cause- well, at 10 gallons a minute, that's a good well flow.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, but,
But then all the chemicals in the water, that'd be going into the environment too.
That's the point.
Yeah.
Two
You know,
things to
Tom, I know
consider.
you got construction experience, and I've got some, but I'm no engineer. And I don't know anybody in here that is. And I wish we could get an engineer that could look at that and say, well, I know where that water's going. You've either got a big problem, or now you don't have a real problem, line the pool. But we don't have that. And I don't want to wait until the point that somebody gets killed, or somebody's house falls in a hole. And the town has to put up with that kind of liability. Brenda was explaining earlier, what kind of a liability did you call that, judgment?
There's two things in the liability, because we do have insurance, for liability insurance with Montana Municipal Interlocal Authority. They can come in, if there's a catastrophic failure or some kind of damages or whatever, they'll come in, they'll investigate. They can do two things. One, they can say, yep, you're covered, and we'll pay the damages. We'll pay the deductible. The town taxpayers will be paying back for all of those damages through what's called the experience modification factor in increased insurance premiums. That's the one scenario. The other scenario is that they come in, they investigate, they look around, they look at all of what you've discussed, they look at what the problems are, and they go, you've known that this problem has been here for years. You have known that there's a large liability that's come up in the last few years, and you have chosen to continue to operate the pool and not mitigate the risk. We're not going to cover you. You town taxpayers will still pay for the damages, but it'll be a judgment levy. The community will not get to vote on it. Even if it's under the charter that you vote on a new levy, you won't, because it is court ordered. And again, you'll pay it on your taxes as an individual levy. Those are the two ways the insurance stuff works. Would they say no? I don't know. Would they, say they're not going to cover it? I have no idea what they'd say. But those are two possibilities out there. So it's just something to consider.
And you can have it all dug up, but how much money are you going to throw into a 60-year-old pool? I mean, you can cut that out, and I don't know how they tie it all back on, but if you want to spend $50,000, $60,000 on a contractor, come and cut that out and run new pipe and everything, anything can be fixed.
There's
But
also
I'd
the
rather-
matter of that point where, in the course of making repairs, we hit that point where they say, now you gotta fix everything.
oh, I don't think you go digging something up or cutting something out until you know where it is leaking. I mean,
I agree.
And then, to me, an engineer, I don't care whether he's educated or not, it's underground.
They've got to
You've got to be able to figure out where that's coming from.
dig
And
some.
I don't know how you do it.
I'm assuming that they're probably doing a seismic type, just the same way as they locate oil or gas or anything else, is my assumption on how they would
Pool.
locate, or whether there is a sinkhole or whatever, they could probably tell from that. But you're right, I mean, some things are over cost that the city can't afford to, do, but, I just wanna make sure that we, you know, have went through and reviewed all avenues before, I mean, that's my opinion
Yeah,
on the thing.
you just don't know, because I could plug the one end of the big line, and then plug the other end of the big line, and then see if it still went down. Well, at least that would eliminate the big line. But as far as that little line, I don't know what you can do with it. It's got so many vents coming up. Don't know what size it is. You'd have to dig and find it.
Well, I know that the amount of phone calls and talking that has happened personally to me, the majority have said they'd like to see all avenues done in order to keep the pool open. I don't know how many other, have had taxpayers and stuff since the newsletter come out. But I got phone calls, emails, and the majority of them are saying that they would really like to keep the pool open, not only because of kids, you know, kids don't have anything to do in the summer, but also some of the things that go along with it, like the parents drop their kids off, well, they had to have gas to get there. So they, you know, and then they had to feed the kids lunch beforehand, so they stopped at, you know, S&S or here or Castles and got them some lunch. So then your businesses start losing economic things there too. You know, so, I mean, there's things like that you have to stop and think about too.
Well, yeah, but what we could do, Tom, that we haven't already done over the several years now we've been doing this.
Okay, you had a poll person come in. He was just a person that lived in town and come and looked at it.
He's from here.
He's
and
from there?
His job was Pool World in there, and they installed pools. We buy our heaters from him. And so he come in and he says, I'll come take a look. I'm bringing your heaters in and we'll see what we think. And it was full of water, so we couldn't see what was down at the bottom, but he tested whatever he thought he could. And
So if it was a 5-inch line, we could line that, right?
I think you could probably line it. It's not as straight. It goes out of the pool like this and then makes a 90 and heads straight down the pool like that. And you have access to both ends. So you'd have to get a cable down in there and then you could possibly line it.
Okay. So, and you think you do have a way to block both ends of that? So then we could eliminate we'll either know that that is the problem or that is not the problem.
Yeah.
Right?
You can get the inflatable bulbs and stick it in one end, and then I'd have to get another. I've got one, but I'd have to do the other one, stick it in there, and block that. And then if the water keeps going down, you're pretty sure it's into that other little
Into the other
heater
line. Well, maybe we ought to try something like that first before we make a decision. Because if we could line the 5-inch line and keep it going for a bit longer, I mean, it's an idea.
Your thoughts as well on that?
The idea of keeping it going a little longer, if we're building a sinkhole somewhere, we don't want to keep building that a little longer.
I agree.
What would it cost to hire an engineer, a structural engineer of whatever kind, to assess that thing and try to tell us where it's leaking from?
Probably anywhere from 10 to 25,000.
I would think.
It was just not worth putting more money. I would rather see the money that we have been spending.
You want to go ahead and take some questions? Or?
Yeah, well, I think these
Are we
people have
open to
come,
comments at all?
to be able to talk.
Let's see what you got.
Yeah.
What I would suggest is you plug the line off, if the pool stops leaking, leave it full for the winter, you know where the problem's at. If not, drain it in the summer, run a pressure test on your heat lines, it'll tell you where the leak is. It's simple. I mean, you can run a pressure test in those heat lines, and it'll tell you, it'll isolate exactly where the leak is. But if you plug it off now and it stops leaking, leave the pool full all winter. It won't take any more water, it won't make it seep. That's my view.
Yeah, I know, I'm aware of how you pressure test. But that's a pressure test in a confined thing. This has got 8 vents coming in there. Now to plug each one of those and seal them adequately is going to take some work. And then you've got the line that's dropping in from the pump that you've got to hope that it's sealed. And you don't know that it's sealed. So, I mean, it's an avenue.
But if it holds pressure, it's sealed, right?
Well, you still got to be able to, you got to plug every one of those vents.
Exactly.
And there's 8 of them. And they're not just a little, a regular old line coming up. It's a vent with a hole coming up. So you got to be able to make a good seal on that. And exactly how you're going to do that, I mean, you're not going to want to plug it with cement or anything. You've got to be able to put some kind of fitting in there that will seal it off. And like you said, anything's possible. But how much time and effort are you going to put into that? And for us to block that off now, then now we've got to drain that pool to empty. All the way to empty. Get those plugs in place and then fill it back up. Which is just letting it drain and then pump the rest out.
And Roger, wasn't there cracks also that you could actually see? Didn't you say this summer you could see bubbles coming up
Yeah,
as well
on
as
that,
going
on
it was
that
coming-
corner where the cracks are, you could see water seeping in,
Yeah,
coming from
as well
underneath
as
and coming in.
going? So
It was
there's
just a
definitely
seep,
cracks.
and then it would run down the pool like that. But you can see it on that one corner seems to be an area, and it's quite a ways away from where the lines are. So I'm not sure what would be causing that over in that corner, other than some drain lines. But it's
Well,
just whatever you want to do.
I would-
Doesn't-
I would definitely rather see the money that we are spending on keeping that pool open saved to help go to the new pool. I'm all for having a new pool. I think that's a great idea if that's what people want. But for us to be spending so much money and chemicals and possible liability of, you don't know where all that water is going. It's just kind of a scary thing, and I feel like we're wasting that money that we could be saving and setting aside as a town to go toward the new pool, a new pool.
We could be fishing
So-
kids out of the river now until we get a new pool.
That's been brought up
Well,
since 1961.
They built the
We
pool
all
thinking
swim
the
in
kids
river.
would stay
We
out.
always have.
Yeah.
When we were kids, I've been here since 1961, we'd swim in the pool, especially as we got older. The people that use that pool are not high school kids. They're barely junior high. It's the younger kids. And they're not the ones that are running down in that river. When we got bored with the pool, off we go. We go to the river. There's only been one person that died in that river, and it wasn't because there wasn't any pool. He was in a car, his brothers pushed him off, and they couldn't get him out of the car. So, you can use that as a safety thing, but in the span of that pool, nobody's died because they couldn't go swimming in the pool.
And how many kids learned how to swim so they didn't die in the pool?
Well, sure, they got swimming lessons.
They pulled a lot of kids off the bottom of that pool too.
I mean, these are all scenarios that anything's possible, and so you can.
Debate that all night.
Most of you know me, but I'm Angie Hopwood, and sorry, I have to have notes because I don't usually speak in front of grown-ups, and you guys make me really nervous.
We can all sit on the floor.
I'm here.
You know, sit on the
Just
floor,
start picking
yeah.
your noses, I'll feel right at home. So, I'm here on behalf of the Superior Swims Committee, and our mission is to raise enough money to build a new pool to donate to the town of Superior. We are currently working with an architectural consultant, and he's helping us develop our next steps as far as fundraising efforts. But he's also been helping us price out new pools that would be less expensive to build as well as more self-sustaining to lessen the burden for the taxpayers. And at this point, it's just really our goal to ask you guys, and this is not I'm stealing Trish Donovan's words now, but we're just asking for some patience. You know, we're just hoping for some patience because it is going to take time. But our hope is to build a new pool at a new site. And the reason for it is it's cheaper, but also because we do want to keep the current pool open for as long as possible. And so far, and we've only been a group since last March, we've raised over $8,000 just from local support. We had over 100 people running in our 5K, and that included people from all 3 county schools as well as Missoula. And the outpouring of support that we've received has been absolutely astounding. And that just tells me that people want the new pool, but they also want the old pool to stay open as long as possible. And I'm just asking, we're all asking, a lot of us are here tonight just asking for patience, because we've really worked hard on this. A lot of the people that you see here were absolutely integral in helping plan those events.
Well, Angie, you know, I appreciate everything you and your group have been doing.
Bravo.
I appreciate that you're going to continue doing it. And that's kind of community support that we need. But when you say as long as, keep it open as long as possible, we're past that point, I think. And you know I'm a big supporter. But I think we've gone past the point of fiscal responsibility or our responsibility to the town. And when I say the town, I'm talking about all of these people. Right? You're the ones going to be paying that extra taxes if we have to pay a liability judgment. We're past the point where it's reasonable. $20,000 to $30,000 to get an architect to come, or tell us, or not an architect, an engineer, tell us where he thinks it's leaking from. We can take $20,000 or $30,000, put it in that bank account for the new pool.
Right. Yeah, what we would have to spend to try to fix the old pool, we could be helping you, put its money aside to the new pool. And I know that's hard to make those
Well,
decisions.
it's a great thing to want to do that. And we got our estimates from an engineer 7 years ago. This was $1.5 million.
To build a new pool?
Build a
Or to
new
fix,
pool.
to fix,
No,
new pool.
they were not interested at all repairing a 60-year-old pool.
Right.
That's all well and good, but at $8,000 a year, we're looking at keeping the pool open for another 50 years. Now, you can hope for grants, and we know we've looked into it. You can apply for all sorts of grants, but you rate so darn low, they won't give you any money.
Trish Donovan.
Thank you for hearing me. I appreciate what you're saying about the liability, and I appreciate all of your efforts to look into this pool question and really investigate some alternatives for us. I have lived here for 40 years. My children grew up here. I have a grandchild here now, but I'm not asking for those people in particular. The 40 years that I have spent in Mineral County have been spent in public health and in education. Therefore, I've spent an awful lot of time with people in this county. What we need to do, from my point of view, is look at this more globally and step back a little bit from the pool. The pool is not just a place where people go and spend an afternoon or kids spend an afternoon. It's part of the environment of our community. I worry about several things that I've heard tonight. Number one, I worry about closing a pool. It's awfully hard to start something up again once you lose it. When you lose it, you lose the impetus and the dynamic forces that keep a thing going. The second thing I'm concerned about it is not just the children, although I am very worried about the children. I think Roger's right. I think, I take walks often in the afternoon. That pool is used dramatically by the kids, but I tried to get my grandson into swimming lessons, and he was like one of the last kids that could get into them. Those swimming lessons are always full. And that's it. You can't have swimming lessons in the river. You really need to have a place where people can go and swim. And when I come into town and I see this is a Superior, it's a play town. It's a place where
Playful City.
A playful city. The pool is integral into that idea. The last thing I want to do is acknowledge I have some concerns about liability as well. I think that is a very big concern. I think, but I wonder if there's a reason why we need to be more concerned about it this year than we were last year. And I can see that there was a lot more water that left the pool and all of those things. I think it's really important, and I really encourage you to keep looking for ways to keep the pool open, not in the long term. Everybody agrees that pool is at the end of its sustainable life. But that pool is really important in the environment of our community. And if you can just let us have a year or two to get the money together to build this new pool. If in fact you're talking about $35,000 to maintain that pool, that is significant.
It's more than that. It's more than that.
Well,
We
according to-
budgeted $50,000.
This year we budgeted more because,
Oh, well,
because the
I'm just going by
chemicals.
what I got in the newsletter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Keep in mind, the pool was, as you said, never designed to be self-sustaining. And we don't have the parks paying for themselves. We don't have the sidewalks paying for themselves. We don't have the streetlights paying for themselves. We do those things because it's part of the community and it's part of keeping us all safe. And furthermore, keeping it a vibrant community. I really encourage you to think about giving us at least another year to try to get through this process of gaining more money, making more commitments to the financial establishment of a pool fund where we can build a new pool where everybody can enjoy it. I really disagree with this idea of closing it. I think that would be a mistake, and I really encourage you to think about giving us some time to achieve this goal that we've set for ourselves.
I'd just like to address the fact that I know I'm going to be contrary to, I'm sorry, for Ms. Donovan and for Ms. Hopwood. Let me start by saying the water issue is one of the major things that I have in concern with. We had, what, Roger, 2 million gallons?
At least.
2 million gallons of water that was processed for drinking water by this town, paid for, pumped, having to go through that process and then getting pumped again and retreated again to the pool. Now I realize that the pool is an important part of the community for the kids, but we're talking about a 10-week span. If this pool was open all year round, I would agree with you, Ms. Donovan. I would agree that, that part of how it plays in the community. But 10 weeks is such a small amount. Given the liability issue, the $50,000 that's already going through, they raised the water rates because there had been negligence in making sure that the water rates were raised incrementally for this town. And if I'm not mistaken, we were getting behind on.
We have bonds for the loans for both water and sewer, and they have covenants in them, and we're required to meet a certain amount of coverage, and it's based on the amount of revenues and the amount of expenditures and the highest year's level of debt service during that 20 or 25-year period. And this year the sewer did not meet it, and the water was real close to not meeting it also. That's one of the reasons
So
that
if
the
we're
water
having to
rate
pump
went
2
up.
million gallons for the next 2 years, how much more is it going to cost? How much more is it putting workload on the particular pumps that we have right now and causing failures? Now, I know Roger and Rodney worked very hard on those particular pumps to keep things going. But, yeah, if we're having to pump that much water, that's just another additional liability, not to mention the liabilities that you folks were talking about. If we don't know what's going on underneath that ground, and the town does know, there is a liability. And it's not only going to be on the taxpayers, but it's going to be on the town council. And I would hate to see anything happen to any of the residents of this town, particularly if that pool were to fail. Now, it sounds like from Roger that it's built pretty good, but I wouldn't want to take the chance that if there is a sinkhole underneath that pool and kids are in there because of the water pressure and things go on, something happens, who's going to be responsible? Especially if something happens to one of our kids. Because we want to try to save it for 2 more years. Now I realize I would love to have a pool. I would like to see a pool that's open all year round.
All summer,
Yeah.
at least all summer.
Well, summer. I'd like one that would be winter. I'd like to be able to swim. That would be my preference, is to get an indoor pool, but I don't really want to manage it. Good. I mean, yes, we want to see it, we want to see it cool, but it's an emotional issue. And as much as you try to disassociate that, what I'm hearing from the folks here is that it's still an emotional issue, no matter how hard you try to separate it. Because fiscally, we need to be responsible. It's unfortunate that, and I'm sorry, I'm going to put this on the town council from the years before, who have just continued to not address this particular issue. This just didn't pass, it wasn't looked at, it wasn't addressed, they didn't want to deal with it, and they just pushed it off. And unfortunately, I think the current council is the one that's left having to try to deal with that.
I do think that they addressed it though, because they have a committee that's working on a new pool.
No, I think
That's how we got established.
That's how it got established because they were taking a look at it.
Right.
I'm saying
That's what you're
the
saying.
But
prior
this
years-
started
prior
way
years.
back before 2010. The leaking started well before that.
It's been leaking for as long as I've been there.
Mhm.
I've been there 25 years. It's always leaked.
Well,
But
why
it-
didn't you fix it way back then?
It's the same thing. How much money you gonna put in there? You don't know where it's leaking.
Anyway, I'd like
But
to
it
see
was at such a slow start.
I'm sorry. I'd like to see, if we close that, save some of the money, the town would be able to use some of the money, some of the money to be able to go, to be able to build.
Are you done, Ernie?
Yes.
And I am Liz Gepton and with Monroe County Community Foundation. We have a number of our representatives here. Meg Daly is right here. Angie's on our board now. Len Kepke and Shirley Miller. So we're here because we support the idea of a swimming pool, number one. And we also support the idea of keeping the pool open while this fundraising continues. And I don't feel that the town council necessarily kicked the ball down the road. I think that they made a decision, a conscious decision, that they would spend that amount of money to keep it going for the town until something like this Superior Springs Committee comes along, knowing that this committee probably would not support a bond to raise that kind of money. But yet, small communities like Superior, the swimming pool is a really big feature, and it's a great amenity. I just have to ask the town council itself. I knew that there was a report done in 2010. It's called the Town of Superior Technical Analysis of the Community Swimming Pool, and dated August of 2010. And I'm sure Brenda probably has a good idea of when this was started, what was the decision-making for getting this engineering report done.
The leaking, essentially.
That was part of it,
It was
yeah.
part
it
of
was
the
leaking.
leaking.
It has just progressed to the point that it's leaking unbelievably. I
Yeah.
mean, like I said, we used to be able to turn the makeup water on and run it for that day, and then not have to put it on for a week, and then it finally come down a little bit. And so then we thought, well, we'll get an engineer to see what he thinks. And his thoughts were, you just don't throw money down a money pit. If you're going to go for it, you're going to build a new one.
And that, I think this group here agrees with that. We've also thought that, there's some interim fix, like you were talking about, Roger, just to keep the leaking at a minimum.
I don't know if there is any interim. We didn't really say that. We could try to determine where it's coming from.
And that's all we're asking, is that would be something we could work on. Help the city with it, put in some money towards that goal until we could get the funds raised for the new swimming pool. And everyone here, pie in the sky would be a nice covered swimming pool, and that's like the top of the line. We'd love to have something like that. It just depends on how much money can be raised from that REACH grant money. And I don't know. Anybody here know of a really serious, hard-hitting effort to raise money and write grants? Anybody hands go up? So that's what we need to do. We need to knuckle down and see what we can get done. and Maggie has some thoughts here too, but if you have any interest in this, it's 2010. Obviously, it's 7 years old.
17.
No,
7 years old. And it's got some great information in it. Now, do you know, Brenda, how much this report?
Around 7,000.
And the Community Foundation just voted a $5,000 kickstart towards the engineering cost. And that was last.
That's a $5,000
And a $5,000
We may have about $8,000.
Go ahead, Maggie.
I wanted to speak because I'm now the president of the Community Foundation, and we are the physical sponsors for this project, which means that we are actually responsible for this project. We have the legal responsibility of it. All the funds have to come through the foundation because we are a 501c3. The swim group is not a 501c3, and this is their only time and their only project they will address. So there is no reason for them to try to become a 501c3, which is quite complicated. And so this is something that we established 501c3s, especially in the community, are encouraged to do for other groups that need to have charitable donation privileges, but don't have it on their own. So we've worked with the Montana Community Foundation statewide, and we now are legally responsible for this project. So we are very invested in this project. And I am a professional fundraiser. I had my own company for 23 years out of Washington, D.C. My children live here in Montana, and we've been here, my husband and I have been here now for 11 years. I love Montana. I'm a farm kid from Minnesota, coming back to roots here. I have to remember to call it a ranch and not a farm. I'm getting better at that. And there's just so many things that I appreciate about Superior. And it's definitely home to me. I wanted the foundation to do something that was significant so that we were known. We have not been known as an entity here. But we can make a big difference in this community. And we are dedicated to doing that. We decided to do the playground because we thought it would be done pretty quickly. Turned out that we started this fundraiser in the beginning of 16, and it was built and dedicated in November of 16. And we raised about $95,000 for that, and we got about $35,000 worth of materials and equipment donated. Not equipment for the playground, but equipment to build it, to assemble it. And so I was blown away. I thought it would be harder. It wasn't that difficult. People are really ready to have something happen in this community. They really are. And we just need leadership. We need to have people who are willing to, I think, be a little sacrificial at times to move things forward, to get involved. We have to stop looking backwards. I'm part of you. We have a beautiful county here. We have all kinds of opportunity. I was actually on my company was the fundraiser for Pittsburgh, in Pennsylvania, when they lost all their coal mines and they didn't know what they were going to do. And I sat through the whole process of that whole city reinventing itself. And Pittsburgh has come alive. One of the great success stories of the American city. And we have Superior. We can do this. We can do this. We have to believe it. We might have to sacrifice a little bit. We might have to keep a little bit flowing going out for money that we think might not be so well invested. But it's short term. And it's more than an emotional issue. This is an economic issue. If this pool goes under and there's nothing to replace it, we might as well hang up Superior on the highway, going out of business. Because this pool is significant. It is very significant. Not just for the kind of money it can bring in for the town. It will never be a profit making. I agree with that. That's why I think that the swim group should put up a fund there for helping to offset ongoing some of the costs, operating costs. And that could be done. We're looking at that. So, I'm passionate about this. We've got a whole passionate group behind this. Do they have a lot of money? Maybe not so much. But when you start working for grants, they want to know that the community is there. They want to know that it's invested in it, not so much for money, but for heart and for determination. That's what's addicted to these grants. And they're out there. They're out there. We're not going to get so much from the federal government, I don't think, but private corporations, swimming pools, this is going to work. So please give us some time.
My name is Greg Worcester. I'm a local attorney, but here in my personal capacity, not representing anyone. Just wanted to share a brief analysis I've done of the grandfathering clause for pools in Montana, because there seems to be some misconceptions, and I think it's best to make an informed decision with all the facts. Kind of a complicated area because any pool construction or renovation has to be approved both by the Department of Public Health and Human Services and also Department of Labor and Industries. There's a little bit of a split on what rules they go to. The Department of Labor and Industries has already moved to the International Swimming Pool and Spa Code. And while for some issues, Department of Public Health and Human Services is still using the Montana administrative rules for public swimming pools, they say that they are soon working on updating those to move to the International Swimming Pool and Spa Code. Going to the Montana rules, the grandfathering clause specifically says updating one system of a pool does not affect any other systems as far as grandfathering goes. So if you remodel or renovate any single system, the rest of the pool does not have to be updated. Also, the grandfathering is only violated if you remodel or renovate. Repairs are just fine as long as you're using identical or substantially similar materials. So repaving concrete with concrete, painting over it, replacing tiles, none of that violates anything as far as grandfathering goes. The International Pool Code is a little bit more restrictive. They also cover, say, repairs, except for minor repairs, can violate grandfathering, but again, it's only the specific systems being repaired. Repairing any single system of a pool does not change the grandfathering of any other system of the pool, as long as those other systems aren't negatively impacted as far as safety and health go. And another interesting provision in the International Swimming Pool and Spa Code can apply to historic buildings. Now, if you have any structure that has been judged by either the state or local jurisdiction, which would probably be the county or the city, as being a historic structure, then none of the provisions about construction, alteration, repair, enlargement, restoration, or relocation of pools are mandatory. Pretty much if it's designated a historic structure by the state, the county, or the city, you have nearly carte blanche under the International Swimming Pool and Spa Code to make any kind of alterations or renovations you want, and it also limits the scope of the approval as long as the health and safety inspector finds that it is safe and it's still in the public interest of health, safety, and welfare. So there are a lot of options as far as repairing and updating without violating grandfathering that are available.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Well, I did have a quick comment. I don't know if it's right for me to say anything since I live in Alberton, but I learned to swim in that pool. And again, I'm Lorraine Topstead. The community that I just moved from in Washington had this exact same thing happen, to where it was years and years and years that they had a leak going on. It was not up to code, and their council there voted to be fiscally responsible to close the pool, put the money toward the new pool, whatever that was going to be, and during that time period when the pool was closed so that people would not be missing the activity available, they used that opportunity to do their fundraising. And they had concerts in the park and things like that that occurred to replace the activity, not exactly, totally, but
It's Tenasket, Washington, where I moved from. If you look at examples of how other small communities handled this, I believe it was 2 years the pool was closed. And it didn't seem like the community was like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? There's no pool. It came around. And then when it opened, it was like this giant grand opening. Everybody was thrilled. And the mayor had a wonderful big party there. So,
Yay! A happy ending.
yeah, it was a very happy ending. So it gave them time to fundraise, took the problem out of the mix, and they were able to move forward.
You know, the Mineral County Community Foundation, I got to say, I really hadn't heard much at all about you until you started talking about this playground out here. And then I was, well, that's an awful lot of money, and can you do it? Well, I was just profoundly impressed with your job on that playground. The work you put into it, the money was there, you raised it. And I'm impressed every time I go by that playground and I see it. You did a wonderful job. You're definitely capable of getting this pool moving on, no doubt about it. And, you know, I will support anything you come up with to get it done. But for the liability issues that we face right now, I don't think we can really take the chance of leaving it open another year. We're keeping water in it to go who knows where. And in 2 years' time, I don't believe your enthusiasm, or I don't believe Superior Swim's enthusiasm, or this community's enthusiasm for building a new pool or some other kind of water feature, if that's what you decide to do, I don't think that enthusiasm is going to lag if we shut that pool down for a couple of years. And, you know, I appreciate everything that you're doing. I appreciate everybody being here tonight. And, you know, I got some emotional issues about that pool, too. Like I said, that's the first place when I hit this town one afternoon that I stopped and had lunch. And I want to see that. I want to see another pool there or some kind of water feature, something for kids to get in and enjoy. But it's time to shut the old pool down. I'm going to make a motion that for the time being, we close the pool. In the interim between now and when we would have opened the pool, that Roger explore what it takes, what he can do as far as that line that you're talking about and relining it. But if that fails, that we shut the pool down.
Can we make a motion like that for those? That long? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
I can make it longer if you like.
Yeah, no.
So your motion has a condition.
Okay.
Yeah,
There's a condition.
There's the condition in there. Close it
For now.
make the decision to close the pool with the condition that Roger explore in the interim between now and when we normally open the leak.
As
Or
far
more
as,
action of plugging it.
is that what we're talking about, is relining that pipe?
Well,
Well,
yeah, you'd have to look and see.
See if that's the problem.
Explore the issue and see if that's
Yeah, they reline
fixable.
sewer
Okay.
pipes all the time.
Yeah.
So the technology is out there.
We still got a motion.
I have another question.
All right, one more quick point on grandfathering. If a pool is not continuously licensed, it can lose its grandfathering. So
Yeah.
if the pool isn't licensed for a period of 90 days, then all grandfathering is
Yeah, there's a fee to do that licensing fee, it's a couple $100.
January.
January.
And it can be, you like he said, you have the 90 days or so you have some time period in there to go ahead and finish that.
I saw Ellen back here earlier. Has Ellen weighed in on this? Have you?
She's the county attorney, not city.
I understand that. I'm wondering which attorney you've consulted about the liability issue and how significant. I mean, I have a liability issue because half the people in town walk by my house every winter, and I have to keep my walks.
It's just
I understand-
historically what I've watched with any liability with the town of how
But
they
have you-
investigate it.
have you consulted
But it's
specifically
with
about this
usually,
topic?
this one we have not called MMIA about. I have really not wanted to call them about it.
But if you're prepared
Because-
to close the pool today, then perhaps.
And whether
a
they
step
don't
would
close
be-
it today or not, if you bring that forward to MMIA,
Admitted liability.
yeah,
Admitted
you've
liability.
put them on notice that we
There's a
have,
problem.
that we know that this problem, and we are aware of this problem. How much do you want to do that right now?
Well, I think
Because
in the
they
public
could come
meeting,
back
we
and
all-
say,
I mean, it's
we're
already
not.
It's already obvious that you're
Yeah.
concerned about it. If you haven't talked to Ellen yet, if you haven't consulted some.
Ellen
attorney-
doesn't work for us.
Yeah.
I understand that. My husband was the county attorney for many years. I know
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know who the county attorney works for.
My
But I-
cons- my
but what I'm
concern
saying
is-
is if you're concerned about the liability and you haven't yet consulted an attorney, maybe it's premature to decide this is the night.
We
to
don't
close the pool.
consult
Maybe
our
you should-
attorney. We would consult the insurance agency who is going to, and their attorneys is who's going to cover the town, cover this community in the event of the damages. If I consult them, they could come back and say, in writing, you're not mitigating this problem. We're not going to cover you at all. So yeah, that could happen in the next 30 days. If I do that, then it's out of everybody's hands. I've been really reluctant to ask the insurance because I know what they're going to say on some of these things.
I see us standing on a precipice right here, and if you decide to close the pool, I don't see what you're losing consulting how great is your liability. I mean, the city has liability over a lot of issues. I understand that, and I sympathize with that.
And
It just
I'm
seems
more
like-
than willing to send that out to MMIA if you want me to. Not a problem.
Or talk to Ellen, or talk to somebody.
Talk to our own town attorney.
And you have I was going to say, you have a city attorney, it looks like you have an attorney sitting here in front of me, I don't know. It looks like legal advice from a legal expert might be worthwhile before you take this big step of saying, okay, let's close this.
I mean, if you bring it to them, they may say we're not covering you going forward, but if you don't bring it to them and something happens, then they're not going to cover
Could
you
be-
anyway.
yes.
So there's nothing lost in bringing it to them.
The thing that'll be lost is that you won't have the option to open it if they do say they won't cover it from here
Well, that
forward.
would probably be for the best anyway, if it's something that they
Yeah.
don't cover if they knew that this condition exists. And it may be exposing the city to more liability to
Mhm.
have this knowledge that this is happening and not have reported it.
Oh.
What would be the difference of just having the study like he suggested without saying you're going to close it right now? Wait until the study comes back.
Well, we are waiting, the motion is that Roger is going to proceed with trying to determine that is the leak, if it is fixable, and if not, this spring the pool doesn't open. That is the basis of my motion.
It doesn't matter to me, it's just maintenance, but we're gonna, to do that, we're gonna have to drain that pool now. And we're gonna have to plug it, and then get it back up, and then let it sit. And then we're gonna, either way, if it continues to leak, we're gonna have to continue that water at it all winter long, till the final decision.
Give me a second.
And it doesn't matter to me.
So how long does it take to drain it and plug it and fill it back up?
Well, we'll put a pump in it now, so that'll help it go down there. We'll just pump it in there, and we'll have it drained in 2 or 3 days.
So definitely by next council meeting, you would have
We should
knowledge on whether it was the 5-inch line or the pressure line.
Yeah, I would think so.
With the previously given reason for having water in the pool right now, it seems like it'd be imprudent to drain the pool completely at this point. Because,
But that's the only way to find out
to do
whether we
that,
got a
Joe.
leak there or not.
and it looks like right now we're only be on the hook for a few $100s for the license, and may not use it come spring when it's safe to drain the pool and not get frost heaves, and check to see if there's leaks in those pipes.
That's true.
And then at that point, make a decision going forward whether to open or not. I mean, it costs a whole lot of money to operate, I understand that, but if you find out before it's even time to open it in early June, if you can find out in May, without
We'd
causing
have to do
frost
it
heaves,
before then.
to see if there's leaks, then you paid a few hundred for the license,
Chemicals.
but you can shut it down and not have to have the constant operating costs.
Well, I make a I make a motion to.
We already got a
We got
motion
one
on the
motion on the
table.
table. So
A
either-
second. Second, Kelly.
Any further discussion?
As far as further discussion, so that, it's a condition on the motion, correct?
Yeah, if
Clarify,
Roger
yeah.
investigates the leak, if he can determine that's probably where it's at, he makes that effort to correct it.
And it's not fixable, the pool would close.
I don't foresee it, even with those conditions, being able to shut it down completely until next spring. anyway.
Well,
We've got to get it full and set, and then we're going to determine then, well, we're not going to be doing a whole lot of work in the dead of winter in that thing. We're not going to drain it.
I
So we're
wouldn't
going to have
expect-
to wait till spring
Yeah.
to have everything, so we can get it all exposed, if we're going to fix it. So it seems to me we're committed to keep it full.
I have a hard time voting on some motion that has a condition.
Well, we do that all the time, though.
Okay,
Any further discussion?
Question?
Question?
nay.
Aye.
Aye.
In the meantime, do you want me to contact Tom or Ann and then
Do we need to contact Con yet?
I'll ask him?
Yeah, he would, because he's our attorney, so.
Yeah. Well, what questions do we have for him at this point, though?
I'll send an email to Tom that I sent it, and then I send
That's just informative.
and ask him.
He
And I'll
basically
have
changes
Roger
the
help me.
matter.
So do we really, do we want to tell NMIA right now?
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Moving forward. Counselor Ward 2 appointment.
You, it's from January 1 through the next term, end of the term, which would be, let's see, next year is 18, so that's like county and state elections. 19 would be the unexpired term. It's his term that he didn't file for because he wasn't sure if he was going to stay in the community, essentially, or not. And since he's made the commitment to stay in the community with the church as their pastor, that he's willing to stay on the council. But because he didn't file and didn't become elected, he has to be appointed for that unexpired term for the 2 years, and then in 19 he would run for the following 2 years.
Do you have the number of meetings you missed and number of days attended?
Not off the top of my head.
Do we have any other
Ward 2 is a tough ward.
applicants?
No, Ward 2 is a tough ward.
You know, sometimes it
I know where
is.
you're going.
Yeah.
I know.
I have a hard time accepting, you know, giving someone an appointment if they're not gonna show up for the council meetings. You
Yeah.
know? I mean,
And he's never gone past, legally, you can miss 3 in a row,
Yeah, I don't think so. Anytime.
unexcused. And then after that third one, council can vacate the seat.
I'm having a cookie deficit. Can you
But-
swing that plate down here?
Yeah.
Can you reach it?
Yeah.
You bet.
Before Ms. Felstead gets to him.
Can't pay me enough.
Ooh, these look good.
There's
So-
more back, I think.
And he's in agreement to,
Yeah,
to be.
he said at the last meeting he was in agreement that he would be willing to continue on the council. He just didn't know that he would be, and tonight he let me know a week ago that he was going to be out of state. So.
Can we table that, or is it not?
It has to be done by January.
By January, so.
Well, you can probably table it to the January meeting, and then it would just start from there.
No, I don't know. You say that we have no other else that has expressed interest.
How do you end up doing that? Is calling door to door? That word's a lot of them start laughing.
Sometimes I know why.
They shanghaied me 7 years ago. I didn't know I was doing it.
Is this a tough word too?
Sometimes.
Because I got a call and
Yeah,
I'm like,
we
why?
usually
How
start
many
calling.
picked? You were next on the list.
Yes. Yes. We start calling, trying to get through for people, but the last time
Well,
it was a tough.
I'll make a motion, we appoint Richard Lewis as council board two.
I'll second.
Discussion? Question?
Aye.
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 With a condition.
Okay, update the I-90 Superior
Y'all
sign.
know, 5 years ago is when we did the sign that's out there by the hospital. And at that time, it cost $2,000 to redo that sign, but it was mainly because the sign itself had to be rebuilt because a lot of it was broke apart. And so that sign is getting really, really faded. And so I contacted Matt Clyde, who is the one who did the original one. The top picture that you have here is the original sign. And then I asked him if they, could do another one just to give you a choice. So they kind of did the bottom sign, which is not quite as busy.
Yeah, it looks better.
Yeah. And the cost to do that is mainly just the design, the production, and installing the new, is it vinyl? Mm-hmm. Okay. Installing the vinyl on the sign that's existing up there is $475. So, but it is a plus to the community to welcome people to our community.
Well, yeah, I mean, it brings people into businesses too. I mean, and the local businesses need all the help they can get.
Yes.
There's no two ways about that. I wish we could get one on the other way, coming this way.
And I didn't get the minutes out, but there was a reason, because I think there's a certain number of signs that are allowed, that the state will allow, and there's no more signs available. No more signs.
Unless we
Permits
take
available.
over one that's out,
already.
someone's going to abandon one out there.
And I haven't heard of anybody getting abandoned yet.
We could just go out and put one up on that. After them fill the court.
We're out there in 2 in the morning,
Nobody
right?
would notice that, right?
It is kind of odd too, because I mean, sometimes you see billboards going up when you think that there's all the billboards that the place can stand. So I think it was Tim Reed who actually brought that up the last time we kind of discussed that.
And he might know if there's one that's coming available.
I would love to see one, on the eastbound traffic, because we need that much more to pull people in. And I mean, as far as the choice here, it looks great.
Can I make suggestions on maybe instead of having gas, diesel restaurants, motels, which they kind of already have signs, the motels and stuff, that maybe we put like hiking, fishing, floating river.
Bird watching.
We have a new playground. We have a new playground.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be new for the next 3 years, can't it? Instead of, because they already have advertising for those things, the gas, diesel. So I think I would like to see, maybe that
That's an
encouraged
That's
instead
a real
of,
good idea. I mean,
because everybody could see the town pumps sign for miles that the
basically
town
you-
pump is there and
When you do that, you're telling them, look, there's other things here. Stop.
stop.
You know,
Do-
stop, visit, look
Visit.
around. Yeah, I see where you're coming from in a way there. I mean, I
Yeah.
like that idea.
So then I just wrote those on there, Brenda, so
Okay,
you can
that's
just,
cool.
yeah, you can just,
That saves me a lot.
yeah. Yeah, and that maybe putting that Superior, maybe outlining it, making Superior words stand out, you know, maybe with an outline or, anyway, I wrote that down on
Because
there.
I remember the guy from the Department of Commerce saying, the amount of money that people spend watching birds,
I
and
know.
it was astronomical. And I went, gosh, I never thought about that.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we
There's also
have
hunting.
all different kinds here with the river, you know, the waterfowl and
Oh,
everything
yeah.
else. So, I mean,
Bird watching.
if we can pull them in, like you said, there's 51 or 52% of the tourists in Montana come by on that freeway. If we can pull in 5% for the local.
So I can
businesses.
take this back to Matt and ask him to do, you
Yes.
know, an outline on the word superior,
Okay.
and then change these other words to whatever you want, and leave like next right, easy access.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I think that part's
Yeah.
good, yeah.
And just,
Maybe he could give us another mock.
And then
you
give
know,
us another mock-up of it that I could bring to the January
Yeah.
meeting,
Yeah,
that
and
works.
see if you'd like that. Okay.
perfect.
Yeah.
I can handle that.
And maybe we could look at possibility of getting one.
I have
or
research on the
eastbound.
eastbound, so I think we
Oh.
can start with Tim and see if there's anything, or,
See
and
if
I can
he's
ask
aware of it.
Matt if they have anything available. I don't know what theirs are though, those big ones.
Well, and I'm
They're
sure,
expensive.
yeah, we'll have to pay
They're
for it.
expensive.
Yeah.
$300-400 a month. I
Yeah.
like
Oh.
what Brenda did. Instead of making it so busy, just making the nice one backdrop.
Yeah.
That really changed that sign.
Cleaned it up a lot.
It did, it made it
Yeah.
really stand out.
Yeah. It was too busy to be able to, you're right.
Yeah, because when you're driving and you drive by that and your eyes are trying, you know,
Yeah, you're trying to see, yeah.
you're trying to read it all before
Just
you.
having the line.
Not a lot.
So anyway, I just wanted to mention that, that looked nice.
Okay. I will take that back and I will talk with him and see if there's any other sign permits available or. No legal at the moment.
No legal. Didn't get to that yet. Clerk's business.
Okay, so you have my report. The auditors were in the office, so the 15-16 audit is done. We have the one comment right now, and I'm sure they'll go over that with the exit conference, but it's on the internal controls. They don't like the signature stamp. We are no longer using the signature stamp. The mayor and I are going to be very close. Because we're going to use
Get writer's-
actual original signatures for
writer's
both
cramp.
of us now. So that comment in the next audit will go away. So if it's like this audit, there would be no other comments. The fireman's relief comment that we've had over the past, because we did the actuary, because we implemented, because we are very well substantially funded, that comment has been implemented, and so there's no other action on that at this moment. I have uploaded the annual financial report and the spreadsheet that they make us do that has what they call the data load ledger into the state. I did that today. That's been interesting. Yeah, and the new ordinances, new noise ordinance goes into effect this month. So, and I have the codifications for the books. So, plus all the rest of the lovely stuff.
The stuff on that was in the package on the special session, the House bills, does any of that have to do with our?
Not a lot at the moment.
Okay.
I don't believe our entitlement or anything is going to be affected so much. I did read an article, you know, one thing that could affect not just the city, but the county, and that is the Department of Revenue closing field offices. The field office in St. Regis, don't know if they're vulnerable, but I'm thinking they might be. And I remember before that office moved down to St. Regis, and this was quite a few years ago, one of the people that were, or one or two of the people that were working there for many years left, and they brought some new people in, and they started reviewing the properties, and there was around $14 million worth of properties that were not on the tax rolls that should have been. And I have a concern with that field offices going away, because it's like, okay, how are you going to find out who's built a new house? You know, that blank lot is still being charged as a blank lot. Now there's a, $500,000 house on it. Is it being charged properly? You don't know, because I don't know if they're going to send people out. They say they're going to do a lot of it by email.
Oh, yeah, an email is going to spot a lot of stuff.
I know, but they've already closed quite a few of the
Well, and
offices up along the High Line and in the east side already.
At
And
the
they're
commissioners' meeting,
closing
they were
more.
specifically talking about St. Regis.
So that's
I'll be looking for them to
one
close.
of those effects that I can see, having a problem. Like the Health and Human Services, the OPI, or the OPA office, the Office of Public Assistance, and stuff, that hasn't been here for 5 years since we've been over here. They moved most of that stuff into Missoula, and they either people from here have to go to Missoula, or they do it all online, or by phone.
Or they do it.
Yeah, or they do without. So that's how it affects your community, is when they do those services, something like that. Some of those people don't have the way to get to Missoula to do an interview or an application or anything else.
That's one of the reasons why too there's such a waiting list sometimes in the library for computers.
From
because
computer,
a lot of
yeah.
people don't have them.
And we're looking, and I'm president of the library board, we're looking for ways to get those computers updated, and new computers in there, and more computers in there. I mean, we need, I think we still need 10, and we asked for last year, and we got 1. That's what the county gave us, 1 new one, and they replaced Gunas. Well, and they replaced, it wasn't a public one they replaced Gunas because it was crashing the server. So, yeah, so there are some effects, but I wanted to make sure that the League of Cities and Towns sent those out to give you an idea of what they did in those few days that they were there.
Well, I didn't go through them all, that's why I'm asking.
Right. Oh, and there's a stop sign that we should tell you about, and it's a state stop sign.
You haven't noticed it?
No, but I don't think a lot of people have noticed it, because when they drive up to it, they see the octagon shape and the stop sign in the brain. When you come up to the street, 2 streets up between the courthouse and
It's 3rd Avenue, right by Castle.
By
By
Castle.
the courthouse and Castle.
and you're going that way, the stop sign is facing River Street. So when you stop at that stop sign, you see 2 stop signs, and technically, when you go to stop the first stop sign by the bank, you stop there, and if you go to cross the street, you got to stop in the middle of the street. I got a call from the lady that does the driving tests to tell me about it. Because the poor kid who was doing the driving test, didn't stop in the middle of the street for that stop sign. But it's welded, isn't it?
Well, yeah, they had to repair it because it got run over by a semi, and so they put it up and welded it, but they didn't look at the sign.
Oh.
I mean, they can unbolt the sign and turn it around, but they haven't got to it. I'm sure somebody's emailed them.
I've emailed them.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's 2 of them facing. You got stop sign and stop sign. Well, I got to stop and then stop right in the middle of the river.
I'm amazed it hasn't made Facebook. I really am. So, but yeah, just so you know, but we have emailed Kevin and them to let them know that it should be fixed.
Needs to be on the other side.
I know.
Only in
Only in Superior.
That's what I'll put under the caption when I take a picture tomorrow.
There you go. Only in Superior.
There's Tom's and Emily's. I need you to
what do we
read
need
your
to do?
oaths of offices and sign them for me so that I can get them filed with the clerk and recorder by January 1.
I need to read it out loud.
What is the word fidelity?
That works. Okay.
Go ahead, read it out.
Or just read it out.
Yeah, just go ahead and read it out.
I do solemnly,
When you come to fidelity, tell Tom what it means.
I do solemnly swear that I will support, protect, defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Montana, and that I will discharge the duties of my office with great fidelity. So help me God.
He's going to go with Thomas Gary.
Okay. I will do my very
I do
best.
2 copies so that I have one original in our file, and then I legally have to file yours before January 1 so that you can actually take action.
Davis.
Works for me.
Down at the bottom, it should say I am not of sound
Yeah.
But I have fantasies of what my mind sounds like.
You were up too, weren't you?
No,
No,
Were you?
I got a couple years to go.
no. It was Rick, you, and Emily.
You
and
didn't
the
file
mayor.
either?
I filed, but I was the only one that filed.
So you,
Yeah,
I
you
was
guys
the
won
one
by
filed too.
acclamation.
So we didn't
Yeah.
have to have a.
I know.
We
Like,
chose, you
yay!
guys chose not to go through with the election. Now, I know Alberton did, but most of their people were already were all appointed. They had not been actually elected. So they preferred to go through the actual election process. But
They had a writing candidate that had quite a few. Was that you? I didn't know who it was. But I know they had quite a few votes. Okay. Make a motion we accept the consent agenda.
Second.
Discussion? Question?
All right.
Aye.
Aye. Motion to adjourn.
I second.
Wow.
I was gonna try to beat you and I panicked again.
I'm sorry.
But you were right in there, right away with that
Like that.
second.
Wait a minute, discussion on that.
Yeah.
What does it mean, fidelity? Aye.
Great honesty and loyalty. I got a motion. Don't do
Okay,
anything
so,
until after next
question.
September.
Aye.
Then I'll be gone.
Kelly?
Aye.
Thank you.
okay.